Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about WhatsApp delaying its new privacy policy implementation. We will also take a quick look at the UK inviting India to the latest G7 summit. But first, we talk about the strange case of a comedian being arrested in Indore. The comedian in question is Munawar Faruqui, and he, along with 5 others, were arrested earlier this month. Among other things, they have been charged with hurting religious sentiments and have been denied bail, even though the Indore police has failed to provide any concrete evidence against them. In this segment, we first talk to Iram Siddique, who reports on Madhya Pradesh for the Indian Express, about what exactly led to them being arrested. And she starts by talking about the day that Munawar Faruqi's event was taking place.
So it was on the 1st of January that a comedy show was organized at Cafe Munro in Indore. The tickets were sold through the internet, through Book My Show. And what happened that evening was at around 4:30 p.m., Eklavya Singh Gaur, who's 36, son of local BJP MLA Malini Gaur, barged into the show and alleged that comedian Munawar Faruqui has sort of indulged in passing objectionable remarks against Hindu god and goddesses in the past, and thereby he was apprehensive of the show that was being held at that point of time.
Munawar's comedy has in the past included themes of both religion and politics. His YouTube page has more than 550,000 subscribers, and there, one of his most popular videos is the one where he talks about the Gujarat riots. Around 4 years back as well, Munawar had made jokes about the Godhra carnage and Amit Shah, and back then he claims his family had received death threats. This is what he tells Eklavya Singh Gaur that day in Indore when Gaur was objecting to the event. A video was captured of their interaction.
वो चीज जो मैंने बोली बराबर उसके लिए मेरे को बहुत रिग्रेट हुआ क्यों पता है क्योंकि 8 दिन तक ना मेरी माँ को मेरी बहन को डेथ थ्रेट रेप थ्रेट और मेरे को मैं घर से बाहर नहीं निकल सकता था 8 दिन तक आउटरीच चल रहा है अरेस्ट मुनव्वर फारूकी 8 दिन तक मेरे को समझ में नहीं आ रहा मैं कैसे करूं क्योंकि वो पहली बार है सुनिए सर
Iram says that according to eyewitnesses, Munawar also apologized in front of Eklavya Singh Gaur, saying that he is sorry if in the past he had hurt people's sentiments.
At that point of time, Munawar had not even started his gig. All right. So when Eklavya made those allegations, Munawar tried to pacify the situation, and then Eklavya sat through a bit of Munawar's performance. This is what an eyewitness who was present in the show told me, that Munawar started making jokes on triple talaq and on basically Islamic traditions. About 2-3 minutes into his gig, Eklavya got up and went out. So the eyewitness told me that they thought that he realized that there's nothing objectionable happening, and that is why he's left. However, he returned a few minutes later. Along with him was the organizer of that particular cafe, perhaps the owner, who told Munawar that I'm sorry, this needs to be cancelled. I don't have an explanation for this, but this has to be cancelled right now.
Iram says that the details of what happened afterward are a bit contradictory. According to some accounts, Munawar was even allegedly thrashed by Eklavya's men. But later Munawar says the police were called. And the police came to the cafe and took 4 other people to the Tukoganj police station.
Where based on Eklavya Singh Gaur's written complaint, an FIR was registered. According to the town inspector Kamlesh Sharma of Tukoganj police station, Eklavya Singh Gaur also gave video proof of the fact that Munawar and the others have made objectionable remark against Hindu god and goddesses, as well as made comments on Home Minister Amit Shah and made fun of the Godhra carnage, which have hurt religious sentiments and otherwise. Also, he said that the way the show was organized, there was no social distancing. And considering that we are in the midst of a pandemic, and Indore, of course, is one of the worst affected districts of MP, was done very recklessly, and thereby an FIR was registered at Tukoganj police station mainly under sections 395A, which is Deliberate and Malicious Act intended to outrage the religious feeling by insulting, religious belief. Section 269, Unlawful and Negligent Act, that is likely to spread the infection of any disease, and similar sections of the IPC. But these are the main two sections on which these five people, including Munawar, were arrested.
Now, apart from Munawar, the four other people that were arrested that day were Nalin Yadav, Prakhar Vyas, Priyam Vyas, and Edwin Antony, other comedians who were present at the event and organizers of the show.
After the arrest, Eklavya Singh Gaur gave a statement to the media saying that such objectionable talks were going on during the show that they had to make a video, and then they stopped the show. They took the audience out of the cafe, and the comedians as well as the organizers of the show were taken to Tukoganj police station by Eklavya and his men. Strangely, when I spoke to the town inspector who had registered the offense against Munawar and four others to just get a sense of what was the video evidence based on which the FIR was registered, and if adequate evidence was available against all of them, the town inspector told me that there was just one video available wherein you could hear objectionable remarks or jokes being cracked on Hindu god and goddesses, basically Ganesh ji and Kartikeya ji. However, there is no video available wherein Munawar can be heard cracking those jokes.
So then, technically, the police doesn't have any video evidence against Munawar.
Yes, not of this particular event, no.
And what about these other four people? On what basis have they been arrested?
They are not very sure as to who is arrested on what charge, but generally it is hurting religious sentiment. And as part of being the organizers of the show, all five of them have been booked. They aren't very clear on who is arrested for making those objectionable remarks and who is arrested in the capacity of an organizer. They've just very loosely mentioned that for passing objectionable remarks and organizing this particular show.
And so Munawar has engaged in comedy that talks about religion, that talks about politics in the past as well, right? And he has done comedy routines around the country. Has he faced similar situations in other places also?
As per the details put forth by Tukoganj police station itself, that a similar case was registered against Munawar in Uttar Pradesh's Georgetown police station. However, to the best of my knowledge, he was not arrested in that. And a similar case seems to have been registered at some point of time in Jaipur. But I don't think any arrest per se have happened in this case, like the one in Tukoganj police station.
Also, 5 people along with Munawar were arrested on the 1st of Jan. But then there was also one more person that was also arrested, right? So who was that person and what was the reason for that arrest?
So Munawar and four others were arrested on 1st of January. They were put before the court on 2nd of January, wherein they were given judicial remand until 13th of January. Another friend of Munawar, Sadaqat Khan, who had come to meet Munawar at the remand court on the 2nd of January, was arrested from outside the court premises. And he was also sort of put in jail. So now the total number of those arrested in this case stands at 6.
And why was he arrested?
So I have read the complaint made by Gaur, and he has mentioned Sadaqat's name in his first initial written complaint. However, neither is Sadaqat the organizer, neither is he a comedian. He had just come there to meet Munawar. So when this argument took place, or when Gaur and Munawar were trying to have a conversation and it was not heading anywhere, Sadaqat, in one of the videos that has come out of that particular incident, can be seen trying to speak to Gaur and trying to explain things to him that, the show is not about any comedy on religion or, things like that. So Sadaqat was there at the event, but he had just come to meet Munawar because Sadaqat and Munawar have been friends and they both are from Mumbai, living in Mumbai. So So they've known each other for the past few months. Sadakat was in Indore to meet his grandparents, and since Munawar was also in town, he had just come by, sort of dropped in to say hi to him when this whole thing happened, and he tried to sort of handle the situation. So Gaur, in his complaint to the police, has also mentioned Sadakat's name, and for some reason, the cops during the investigation thought that Sadakat also needs to be arrested. So when Sadakat had come to meet Munawar the next day in the court, trying to arrange some lawyer or some things for Munawar, he was picked up from the court and arrested as well.
Now, after being arrested, Iram says that the lawyer who is representing both Munawar and Nalin Yadav had applied for their bail plea, the hearing for which came up on the 5th of January. In the hearing, the lawyer argued that there is no concrete evidence in the case because there are no videos available where Munawar can be seen cracking jokes, and that Munawar is not the organizer of the show, and so he cannot be arrested and be denied bail.
However, the Tukuganj police station has objected to the bail plea, saying that recently there was sort of a communal clash, if I may say so, at Indore and in Ujjain, which was basically triggered by objectionable remarks passed by those part of a rally trying to collect donation for the construction of Ram Mandir, and the whole that particular district was slightly communally sensitive. So the cops are saying that considering that, they are suspicious of the timing at which Munawar has organized the show in Indore and also made objectionable remarks. So they need to look at a larger picture to see if the two events are connected. So they're trying to get Munawar's call details and those other 4 or 5 arrested in this case, and sort of try to establish if there is some connection between these two incidents. And also the cops have said that since these people have been booked for hurting religious sentiment, giving them bail will upset a certain religious community, which may then protest and lead to law and order issue. And thereby, they should not be given the benefit of bail. Taking cognizance of this application or the objection raised by the police, the Sessions Court of Indore has denied bail to Munawar and Nalin. Separately, another advocate had filed a bail application for Prakhar and Priyam Vyas, both of whom are brothers, and their bail application was also denied on similar grounds.
Munawar and Nalin's lawyer, Anshuman Srivastav, after this applied for a bail plea at the Madhya Pradesh High Court, the first hearing for which took place on Friday. But the case could not be heard because the Indore police failed to produce the case diary to the bench. And so the court ordered the police to get the case diary, and now another date for the hearing will be given this coming week.
Yeah, and it's very strange because as per Anshuman Srivastav, Tukuganj police station is nearly 100 meters away from the Indore High Court. Anshuman had argued that the bail plea at the High Court was at 11 a.m. The hearing was at 11 a.m. So Anshuman argued that if the case diary is not available, the police should be asked by the court to get the case diary, and the bail plea should be slotted for in the second half of the day, maybe say around 2:30 or 4:30. However, that was not heard, and the matter was adjourned, and it's likely to come up sometime next week. That's where we stand right now.
Iram also adds that Sadafat Khan, the friend who had just come to meet Munawar at the remand court and then was later arrested, his bail has also been rejected by the court. The case has now raised several concerns about free speech and how this matter has been handled by the police and the court that has denied bail pleas to the people involved. To talk about these concerns and the questions this matter raises, we now speak to Apurva Vishwanath, who reports on law for the newspaper. And she starts by talking about the considerations that the court should be looking at in a case like this.
So, firstly, when the police is making an arrest in a case like this, and when the case appears before a sessions judge, there are two things that the sessions judge must look into. First is whether the ingredients of the offense are met. So, Munawar Faruqui has been charged under various counts, including inciting religious sentiments, like hurting religious sentiments, inciting violence. He's also been booked for violating provisions of the COVID lockdown. So the first thing is that the magistrate must examine whether all these ingredients of the offense are met. And then the magistrate must also look into, because detaining a person, arresting them, is restricting their life and liberty. So the magistrate must then also look into whether this person needs to be detained, even if the ingredients of the offense are met, whether he is required to be detained, and if he's not detained or arrested, will he continue to make the offense? So this is the prima facie application of mind that a sessions judge must do.
But she says that interestingly, in this case, in the evidence that has been brought to the court, there is no record of Munawar saying or doing anything that the offense made out against him has claimed.
So there are no recordings of speeches or the performance that he's made. There are no witnesses saying that this is the joke he cracked. There's nothing on record. Yet the judge seems to err on the side of caution, or whatever the legal reasoning or the lack of it is, and denies bail. Like we've talked about on this show before, there is a complete non-application of mind on the part of judges in the lower judiciary when it comes to cases like this. But also remember that these are cases in small towns. These are cases where there is pressure by local political groups. In this case, you've had vigilantes or right-wing groups which came and protested, which basically ensured that there was an arrest. So these are the things that weigh in, that shouldn't weigh in, but invariably get linked to how these cases are handled in a court of law.
The other important thing to note is that in these cases, even though Munawar and others might later get bail by a higher court, between that time and now, they will have to spend time in jail, getting punished in a way, even though a court may later judge that they haven't committed an offense.
In that sense, the process becomes a punishment. Eventually, you may get bail in a higher court of law, like the High Court or the Supreme Court. But till you get to that point, the process is the punishment. And the other thing here is, especially when it involves issues such as free speech, these are very significant issues. And in these cases, the police making an arrest and the lower judiciary also sort of giving the police a pass, not asking too many questions, not asking for more evidence on the record, shows that there is somewhere a collapse in the system about how these cases are handled at all. Because in Faruqi's case, it is a case of free speech. And unless you bring to the table telling the court what Faruqi said was inciting violence, was hurting religious sentiments, there is no case made out against him. It can't be an apprehension before the show happens or before he says something. Because the free speech jurisprudence in our country tells us that free censorship is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has said this repeatedly. You have to have a person speak first and then adjudicate or examine, judicially review whether his speech was lawful or unlawful. You can't judge it even before the speech happens. So that's really the crux of this issue. And something as fundamental as this to not be questioned by the lower court is very surprising.
Dear listeners, sorry for this interruption, but before we move on to the rest of the show, I just wanted your quick attention. One of the big reasons people say they like this show is because it helps them understand the news better. It provides them with the context they need to see the bigger picture. And there is perhaps no other place that does that better than Indian Express's Explained section. We on Three Things refer to the section regularly, and it helps us make this show. If you're a regular reader of Indian Express, you know how useful the Explained section can be, especially when you're looking for in-depth analysis by the right experts. You can log on to indianexpress.com/explained and access the coverage 24/7. Explained by Indian Express, where news that matters is explained by experts who know the subject. Now, back to the show. And next we talk about WhatsApp, the messaging platform that is owned by Facebook and which has over 400 million users in India, has been facing a lot of backlash for the past few weeks because of its new updated privacy policy. In a previous episode, we had discussed how this new policy talks about how the user's data will be impacted when there will be an interaction with the business account, and provides details about how there's going to be further integration with Facebook. Users were told that if they don't accept the new privacy policy, then they would not be able to use WhatsApp anymore. But now, the platform has delayed the implementation of this new policy until May 15. In this segment, we talk to Nandagopal Rajan, who writes on technology and gadgets for the newspaper and who is host of a tech podcast called Our Own Devices, about WhatsApp's reaction to this entire matter. So, Nandu, WhatsApp has faced a lot of backlash about its new privacy policy. What has been the company's reaction to it so far?
Okay, there have been many reactions, which also is an indicator that it's not done things right. So after the first privacy policy, it sort of issued a clarification within a week where it gave the explanation that there is a differentiation in how it looks at private chat, which you would have with your friends and family, and the chats or the new chats you will end up having with businesses, and that nothing changes for you when it comes to private chats, and that when it comes to your chats with businesses, some of it could be used later to place ads for you, and based on what conversation you have had. Even that's not very clear, but yeah, in a way, sort of creating the differentiation. And what happened yesterday is that it finally said that, hey, hold on, you don't have to worry about having to delete your WhatsApp account in February if you're not sure about accepting the privacy policy. You have till mid May to do that, which again gives time to the users to figure out the privacy policy. But I think it's actually a way to sort of calm things down for now, let people figure out that there's nothing really big happening.
And WhatsApp, in its own way, has also said that people are misinformed and WhatsApp isn't really doing what people think they are. So, to what extent is that true? To what extent are people's concerns based on misinformation?
A lot of it is actually based on misinformation, because I think people tend to forget the fact that these chats are end to end encrypted. So WhatsApp itself does not know what conversation you're having. So how can that data be given to somebody else, or how can somebody listen in? How can something be done based on that data? People keep forgetting that. And it's wrong to think that WhatsApp will sort of give a backdoor entry to Facebook to that, because the entire reason that WhatsApp is there and it's grown so big is this end-to-end encryption. And without it, it does not have a USP. There is no dearth of messaging apps in this world. So it's all based on misinformation. And also, I have to blame WhatsApp here, because the privacy policy had a very bad messaging. And it's even worse because you are a messaging company at the end of the day. You should have got your words right. You should have got your words better. So that is the sad part, as in, you could have made it very clear that, hey, this is what you're going to do, this is what to expect, and this is what you should not worry about. Now, the other thing is, if this entire thing is only about business chats, why do you want to tell your maybe 2 billion users that all of you are going to get a privacy policy update? The privacy policy then maybe should have applied only to people who are using the business chat. And maybe the first time they're using the business chat, just tell them, hey, we are going to consider your chats with the business slightly differently from the chats you've been having with your mom or dad.
And so, what do you think is the main grouse expressed by privacy experts about this new policy that you think is valid?
So the main problem here is that there is a huge trust deficit when it comes to Facebook. And people have not really bothered about WhatsApp being a part of the Facebook stable. And maybe this privacy policy update sort of reiterated that, hey, remember, at the end of the day, this is owned by Facebook. Okay. And then for the first time, they're saying in as many words that there will be some give and take of data or information or whatever. So that sort of set the alarm bells in everybody that this is a possibility and it's actually happening now. Right. So that is where I think the problem started. And to a certain extent, that is right. There is a trust deficit when it comes to Facebook, and Facebook has to really go out of the way to fix that. And certainly, this is not the way to fix it, And this is maybe in a way only added to that trust deficit.
And then, to what extent do you think this backlash has hurt WhatsApp and will affect its future?
It has done some damage for sure. And that is underlined by the fact that WhatsApp has extended the time to accept this privacy policy. And otherwise, no company ever does this. So this is very clearly hit a raw nerve with WhatsApp. And it's going to take some time to fix it. It is also going to move, I guess, a lot of the conversation to other apps, because the issue is not with the conversation you have with your friends and family, but there might be some conversation maybe some of us are having, which you really don't want anybody to have any access to. And maybe some of those will go to these very secure platforms like Signal. But at the end of the day, remember, WhatsApp also started out in this very similar format to Signal, but then it got bought out by Facebook, and this is where your trouble starts. So, you don't know the future of these platforms also, but I guess a lot of the conversation will move there. I don't know whether there will be a huge exodus of users to Signal.
And yeah, in a previous episode, we had talked about Signal and how it's being considered by a lot of people as more secure and how its downloads have also significantly increased. A similar platform in that sense whose downloads have increased after this WhatsApp backlash is Telegram. To what extent do we see Telegram as potentially being more secure than WhatsApp?
I would say Signal is definitely more secure than WhatsApp, and it comes from the same guy. The creator of WhatsApp and Signal Foundation are the same guy. So in that sense, I would say Signal is much more secure. Signal is not open in that sense. Signal has a lot of restrictions. So I think it's very secure. I've used Telegram also. Telegram is also fine. It is also end-to-end encrypted, but slight asterisk on top is that it's owned by a Russian company. So I don't know how happy a lot of people would be going there. So Russia also suffers from the same thing that you would look at with some Chinese companies. So I think that slight issue is there, but these are both very secure platforms. The trouble is not that. The trouble is what is called the network effect. The network effect is that you can move there, but your network does not. So who do you chat with, right? And the biggest problem with these end-to-end encrypted chats are that they're not interoperable. You cannot send a message from Signal to somebody who's on a WhatsApp. You need that person also to be on Signal. So that is where you would have trouble. So what will happen, I think, is that you will see some users or a bunch of users move together to Signal. Let's say it's your school group, and you decide that, hey, from tomorrow, all our chats are going to be on Signal. And you move that entire group and that conversation to Signal. But you will still need to use a Telegram and a WhatsApp to have conversations with different sets of users. So you are basically just adding to the complexity of your tech life. You will have more apps to sort of deal with.
And in the end, we talk about the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson on Sunday invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be part of the G7 summit, which will be chaired by the UK from June 13 to 15. A statement said that the meet was to unite leading democracies to help the world fight and then build back better from the coronavirus and create a greener, more prosperous future. The statement also said that the UK had invited Australia, India, and South Korea as guest countries to this year's G7. The G7, or Group of Seven, are Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. It is an intergovernmental organization that was formed in 1975 by the top economies of the time as an informal forum to discuss pressing world issues. In the past, the organization has deliberated about several challenges over the decades, such as the oil crashes of the 1970s, the economic changeover of ex-Soviet bloc nations, and many pressing issues such as the financial crisis, terrorism, arms control, and drug trafficking. The invitation by Johnson also comes after he was recently invited to be the chief guest at the Republic Day celebrations in India this year. But later, he telephoned Prime Minister Modi to tell him that he would not be able to visit India in view of the fresh national lockdown in the UK. Indian government sources had said that Modi conveyed his understanding of the exceptional situation and hoped that UK would overcome COVID-19 challenges successfully. You were listening to Three Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and as always was edited and mixed by our producer, Joshua Thomas. If you like this show, then you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.